So recently, the US and Australia have announced a raft of initiatives in the security space. What impact or how important are they for the South China Sea or for Taiwan?
The American footprint will increase in Australia on a rotational basis. As I'm sure you're aware, the force flow of American troops is increasing in northern Australia, primarily between Air Force, Army, and Marines in particular. And I think coming within the context of AUKUS as well, you'll see a growing U.S. Navy footprint in Australia. And all this is meant to, I think, enhance deterrence in the region and be prepared to also, if need be, respond to crises and contingencies.
So why the need to increase that deterrence now?
Well, I think it goes beyond the obvious to state that with respect to Chinese aggression and adventurism in the South China Sea in particular, we see what's been happening vis-a-vis the Philippines. You here in Taiwan feel the Chinese pressure literally every single day. The new normal that the Chinese have been establishing in the Taiwan Strait, in the airspace and the seas around Taiwan, not to mention what the Chinese are doing vis-a-vis Japan as well.
And what do you think is behind Beijing's actions, behind its military buildup?
Well, that's obviously, an interesting question, and the only ones that can really answer that are the Chinese and the Chinese leadership in Zhongnanhai. I personally believe that the Chinese want to establish themselves as the regional hegemon, the geopolitical power in the region that will have sway over any decisions that are being made here, to the detriment, again, of democracies, and of course also to the detriment, in particular, of U.S. relationships with Asian partners and allies that have been long-standing.
And how do you think Beijing views this? Do they view the U.S. as an enemy or simply a competitor?
Well, I would tell you that, again, as somebody who spent most of his adult life in the U.S. military focused on the PLA, I'm pretty confident in saying that the PLA views the United States as, as their primary potential adversary and rival, and they train to be able to defeat the United States more so than anything else.
And how long do you think they've held that view? I mean, we're, as you said, waking up to that concept. But
I think that's been the case for decades, candidly. I would say probably since the 1996-97 missile crisis. That would be my assessment.
It's interesting that you were based in China as the military attaché to the U.S.
Right.
Embassy in Beijing for several years. What was your primary objective?
So a number of things. I mean, obviously I was a liaison between the U.S. military and the PLA, and we actually had a very, very robust relationship in that period of time.
Which years was this?
2004 to 2008 in Beijing. And we spent a lot of time doing exchanges. I spent a lot of time taking U.S. military delegations to China and PLA delegations to the United States. So that was obviously an important aspect of the job. Another important aspect of the job was, of course, learning as much as I possibly could about the PLA, which is difficult in an autocratic society like China, because it's not like Chinese military officers would talk to me. But it was a very, very interesting period of time. It was a period of time where I think the United States, with the benefit of hindsight, naively thought that the more contact we would have with the Chinese, with the PLA in particular, the better it would be for us. And now again, I kind of question the naivete in which we operated in, because I don't think, frankly, it garnered us any benefit.
What do you think that they gained from that period where, as you said, you were being very open,
That's
they were
right.
going to the US, probably military
Yes,
bases?
That's right. I think the Chinese certainly learned as much as they possibly could from us. We were certainly more transparent than they were. We certainly gave them more access to military facilities than they gave to us. So I think the Chinese were able to glean certain things that they have probably incorporated into their operating concepts and the like.
What sort of thing do you have in mind?
So I think, for instance, carrier operations. At that point, I don't remember the exact timing, but when I was in Beijing, they did not have a carrier yet, or they had just bought this old Ukrainian Hulk of a and now they're building multiple aircraft carriers. I think they're about to build a fourth one, right? And they have plans for more. So I think that being able to visit, even if it was just, again, superficially, to be able to see how an aircraft carrier operates, if anything, at least it provided motivation. And I don't mean to imply that we showed them the crown jewels and we let them have free reign. We didn't. But I think being able to exposing the Chinese to our military to the extent that we did not really serve our purposes. It certainly served their purposes.
So you think that they gained more
Absolutely.
from the U.S.?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, that I would say unequivocally.
Okay. And how has that period shaped your understanding of China?
So I think that, again, overarchingly, China and the CCP have a lot more strategic patience than the United States does. And I think part of it is a cultural thing. Yeah. And I think part of it is also the political systems are obviously different. In the United States and in most democracies, we focus on election cycles and we're kind of bound by those. The Chinese Communist Party has a plan, has always had a plan. And they are able, because of the continuity of leadership, to be able to implement that plan. That's why I think it's important that, again, in the United States and elsewhere, we've kind of turned around now in our perspective on China. And if there's anything that, frankly, it's a bipartisan issue in Washington, is the perspective on China. And it's allowing us now to develop a more long-term approach. That was missing before. I think, again, with a certain amount of hubris and maybe even a certain amount of cultural arrogance, we were not, we thought that we might be able to change the CCP and the intent of the party. And I think that's wrong. That was wrong. And in hindsight, perhaps, we have now come to grips with that, whether it was not just the military arena, but also in the economic space. When you think about, the Americans, advocating in essence on Chinese behalf for entry into the WTO,